One of the questions that I often get is related to who is a good candidate for an asset protection trust. So I often get phone calls from people who are interested in asset protection trust. I should specify self-settled domestic asset protection trust. And after having a conversation with the person, we often realize that they're not a good fit. So today we're going to talk about the top 5 people who are candidates or most likely need a domestic asset protection trust. So let's get into it. So like I said, I get phone calls all the time from people who are interested in domestic asset protection trusts. But after we have a conversation for a little bit, we come to realize they aren't the right fit. So let's talk about these top 5 individuals who are best suited for a domestic asset protection trust. But real quick, as a reminder, what is a domestic asset protection trust? So it's a self-settled, irrevocable trust, meaning that the client sets the trust up, an irrevocable trust up, for their own benefit. And they put their assets, they fund the trust with their own assets, and then they have this beneficial interest in the assets. And then it's what's called a directed trust. So they carve out or part and parcel the different trustee responsibilities. The one they retain for themselves is what's called the investment advisor. And so that means that they continue to manage the assets the same way as if it was in their individual name. And so they can sell assets, buy, leverage, whatever it may be. There's a distribution advisor or distribution committee that's in charge of deciding when to make distributions to the client who's the beneficiary. And then we also have an administrative trustee who is usually I like to do my domestic asset protection trust in South Dakota because their laws are so flexible. And this is usually a trust company, administrative trust company in South Dakota, and they just do the administrative function, open bank accounts, actually make the distribution when the distribution advisor or committee tells them to do so. They pull together tax documents or might prepare any type of tax returns related to the trust. So anyway, let's get into it. So top 5. First one is a public figure. So a public figure could take, the form of a lot of different, it could take the shape of a lot of different things. So it could be maybe a celebrity, an entertainer, social media influencer. I've had people who are in charge of different types of public civic activities. People who are politicians. So there's different types who are just in the forefront of the community for a variety of different reasons. They're public figures. And so a lot of people know these public figures and they become a target because of their place within the community. And so they want to make sure that they're protecting their assets from any type of frivolous lawsuits that may be out there related to them being someone who's well known. All right, so that's number 1. Number 2 is doctors. So there's a lot of different type of physicians. Some are surgeons. They actually perform surgery. Others are not. They provide more consultative treatment to their patients. But either way, doctors are under extreme legal scrutiny because of the nature of what they do. So as you know, there's personal injury attorneys, plaintiff's attorneys, and their entire career is spent on suing people like doctors who maybe have committed negligence or malpractice. I shouldn't say maybe have committed. It may not even be that they've committed it, right? It could be that there's just someone looking for a large payday. Whether it's the patient or whether it's the client. So because doctors do high risk work, they are subject to greater legal scrutiny. Therefore, a domestic asset protection trust can make a lot of sense for them. And I include dentists in that as well. I get a lot of inquiries from dentists. So physicians are number 2. So number 3 on the list is business owners. So a lot of business owners, they have a lot of risks. Maybe they're producing some type of, in law school, we always talk about kind of the hypothetical widget. You manufacture widgets, whatever widgets actually are. But a lot of business owners, they actually produce some type of product, and maybe it's a product that goes into a car, or maybe it's food, or maybe it's a dental implant, or it could be anything, right? Or maybe it's a logistics company business owner, and they're shipping and making sure that product gets from point A to point B. So there's a lot of different type of business owners out there who, because of what they do, might end up getting sued. So they want to protect the business, they want to protect their personal assets. And so the Domestic Asset Protection Trust provides a layer, an additional layer. A lot of them have LLCs that maybe they're setting their business up as, and they'll put that into the trust. And so now you can have an LLC that you personally don't even own. So your interest is held by the trust, and then any personal assets that you might have, you can put that in the trust as well. Anyway, you have very strict compartmentalization of business assets and personal assets. Nothing's in your individual name. So even if there was a personal creditor against you, most of your assets are actually in this trust. Therefore, they're going to be protected from those personal creditors. Similar to that is executive. So you may not actually be, so this is number 4, the 4th type of person who really needs a domestic asset protection trust. It may not be a business owner, but it could be someone who is very professionally successful because they are an executive, a chief operating officer, a chief financial officer, a chief investment officer, a chief executive officer. Anyone in that C-suite is someone who could be exposed to greater legal risk and scrutiny because of the nature of their job. And being an executive, they've likely have done really well for themselves, and maybe they have different type of compensation packages, deferred comp. They have things that are going to vest down the road. Maybe they end up receiving an ownership interest in the business at a different time. So there's different things that go into that, but they are, because of the nature of what they do, because they've been professionally successful and been compensated well for that over the life, then they have a lot to lose. So they're number 4 on the list of who needs a domestic asset protection trust. And number 5. So number 5 is anyone who has received a large inheritance. So often, typically, if you're going to receive a large inheritance, the best way to receive it would be in a trust. So let's just say parents leave the child or children a large inheritance. The best way to do that is to leave it inside of a trust rather than in the child's individual name. And the reason for that is because it's going to be protected from wealth transfer taxes. So think about estate taxes, generation skipping taxes. It's going to minimize those. It's also going to protect the assets because it's not in the child or children's individual name or names. And so if there's a personal creditor or there's a divorce, something like that, then it's not in the child's name and it's in the trust. But often parents don't seek the right legal counsel. They don't leave a trust for the benefit of the child and pass the inheritance there. So in that event, if a child receives a large inheritance and they're like, what do I do here? I want to protect this. A domestic asset protection trust is often a solution. So real quick, we'll go through the top 5 again. We said public figures. We said physicians, doctors, dentists. Number 3 on the list is business owners. Number 4 is executives. And number 5 is anyone who receives a large inheritance. So if that describes you, then there's a good chance that you do need a domestic asset protection trust.